We are happy to announce that this episode of the SWW show is partially brought to you by Humble Bundle. Well, not really. We are part of the Humble Bundle referral program, and we just wanted to say that if you like really cheap games and maybe helping charity pending the Humble thing going on, all you have to do is go to humblebundle.com/partner equals SWW. That's right, humblebundle.com/partner equals SWW. And you just do your normal stuff, and it just kind of helps us get a couple bucks here and there. Maybe it helps AJ get his lights, maybe it's Mike camera, maybe we actually pay Corey for helping us out. But again, if you're going to go buy games anyway, it might be worth checking out. Hello everyone, and welcome back to these interview episodes of the SWW show. I am Mike, and today with me a special guest from decently around the world. To get us started, do you mind introducing yourself and the game we're here to talk about?
Yeah, sure. I'm James, also known as Lovely Hell Place, and I'm making Dread Delusion, a weird retro-style RPG that's being published by Dread XP.
Yeah, let's kind of start with that one then. So you said it's a retro-style RPG. What do you, like... Because I have probably some ideas of in my head what that would mean, but like when you explain to people and they go, what does that mean? What is a retro style to you?
Well, I kind of use the term retro style because it's quite vague, and the scene kind of contains so many different interpretations. But I mean, I kind of started in the haunted PS1 scene like a few years back. That's kind of where I cut my teeth, I guess, which was specifically it's this community of people that make games, horror games that look like they've been made on the PlayStation 1, which is quite a specific niche, I guess. But I also kind of take inspiration from other people in the kind of indie PC space, like people like Lilith Zone, Kitty Horror Show, and New Blood games like Dusk. But I suppose I should mention that when I mean retro 3D, which kind of is this new kind of form or artistic form that's vibing off that specific kind of janky retro 3D graphical styles you saw in the PlayStation 1, early PC games, and maybe Nintendo 64. And I suppose it's comparable to like how the indie games, when you thought of the indie games in the 2000s, they were often using pixel art, and they were often kind of looking like SNES games or Mega Drive games. But I think more and more recently you're seeing this resurgence of the artistic styles used in early 3D games, which I think is really cool.
It's a very interesting, obviously this phenomenon's only a couple years old, kind of, because I think you kind of see this genre's hit this like 15, 20 mark. It's kind of where you see this kind of rise of this kind of looking back at them. I'm kind of curious, so I think, when I think of this type of like broad genre of this going back to this like graphic type, right? There's two ways to kind of handle these types of games. It is, the first way is to be realistic to the time, right? So when you saw the rise of the 8-bit, so people using like the NES cartridge maker or whatever, it'd be like, you have to take the limitations of the time and really just use modern twist on it, but it's the limitation of the time, versus like the Shovel Knight approach, which is the like, oh, it's inspired by the time, but we totally could not have done this back then. When you look at that kind of game development and looking back on this now era that you're looking at when you're making this game, which of those approaches do you kind of favor kind of doing?
Definitely like the latter, like Dread Delusion would not work on a PlayStation 1, even though it kind of mimics that style. Because for me, the graphical style is really kind of like an artistic aesthetic choice, because I think that by crunching down these graphics into this pixelated, low poly aesthetic. I think it creates something that can be really colorful, really vibrant, and really quite bold. Like I think when you in like realistic games, you often a lot of detail is almost lost, or there's so much detail that you can sometimes kind of not see the wood for the trees. Like it's hard to really notice what elements of the game are actually interactive, and and it's also just like such a vast amount of work, and you end up with realistic games. Often you end up with them kind of spending vast sums of money for them all to kind of end up looking roughly the same. Whereas I think, for me, it's this aesthetic choice of having this really bold, vibrant, beautiful kind of style that's almost similar to something like Impressionism or Cubism in the art world. But yeah, I'm not so interested in making sure that the game itself could kind of fit within the confines of an actual PlayStation 1 game. Although I mentioned the Haunted PS1 community before, and there are definitely people on that community that are doing really cool things with really trying to actually emulate what those old consoles can do, which I think is equally cool. But yeah, I'd rather create a big, crazy Morrowind-like world that just has this cool aesthetic.
That's a very interesting. Yeah, there's a lot to kind of unpack there. I do want to shout out too, kind of when I was looking originally at Dread Delusion 2, there is a certain style that you really have. I think I can kind of see that you're from that, like that era is kind of thing that really influenced you. Um,
Yeah.
so one of the things that like is always interesting about these two is that obviously there is the style is artistically cheaper in the sense of like polys, but it's not artistically easier. I'm kind of curious if you don't mind talking about challenges you've kind of ran into, kind of while like initially coming up with this art style, kind of making it feel right? Because like if you're using the idea of like, oh, I have a couple thousand polys or whatever, like you have to say a lot now with relatively little to say it in and make stuff feel kind of unique.
Yeah, it's definitely like, I mean, it also makes me think of the artist Mike Mignola, who does Hellboy and stuff. Because before I was getting into games, I was kind of into comics, and I think a lot of artists are inspired by Mike Mignola because his work is kind of quite simple, almost kind of cartoony, but with this real macabre vibe. But as you if you try and emulate his style, you realize that, kind of as you say, it actually takes a lot of skill to compress something down into a really simple, its kind of simplest component parts. And it takes a kind of skill to crunch something down into a low poly form and still have it evoke the kind of root objects that you're trying to convey. But actually, I think once you get practiced in it, and I mean, certainly I find it easier to work in low poly now, because once you develop your style, and once you kind of know what you're doing with it, I really enjoy jumping into Blender and just kind of making strange structures in low poly 3D. But yeah, it is about capturing the essence of a thing, I guess, and trying to compress it down into the kind of smallest components you can.
So I'm kind of curious, for you at least, once you're on the groove of making these art pieces in Blender, was it faster, would you say, if you than like doing a higher res thing? Because again, it's this, I would say, it is in theory easier, but it's a lot of times not, just because you can still be the same level of picky or whatever. You just have less like direct polys to add.
I think it is definitely quicker. Like, and I think that's also why you see, I mean, it can go both ways, like, but I think really the reason why you see retro 2D, as in like pixel art games, and retro 3D games being made by indie developers is because by and large it is quicker to make those assets. However, it does kind of vary depending on the artist and the artistry involved. Like, you can get some pixel artists who spend an incredible amount of time on their work and create, these kind of beautifully rendered pieces of pixel art, and that would definitely take longer than if you were just than probably like the average 2D artist making assets for a game. So it kind of there's a scale, I guess. Like, I think it is generally quicker to create these kind of retro assets. However, that's not to say that sometimes certain artists could spend a huge amount of time creating really kind of precise and beautiful artworks that might take longer. But I mean, with regards to retro 3D, I mean, it's just the fact that like I only use one texture, right? And actually I have I kind of use pixel art in my textures. They're quite crunchy pixel art textures most of the time. And I make a bunch of textures and then I can just kind of like unwrap those on the models quite easily, and they'll just use that one texture. When you've got a realistic model, you will often have like, these days models are so complex that not only will you have a much more highly detailed model that will take you longer to make, but you'll use like bump maps, depth maps, you'll have all these different layers of textures, and it really does multiply the amount of work. I kind of joke sometimes that my levels, like the actual level geometry, probably has less polygons than like a Last of Us character's face, So yeah, I think it is easier.
That's interesting.
In general.
That's actually a good kind of point we made there too. I want to jump into, with the main time we have now, kind of talking about the gameplay loop and the world itself, right? So as we said, we talk about it's a low poly, as we call it, an open world RPG. Your team was not that big, so I'm kind of curious. What is the like size and the depth of the world that people can kind of expect playing this game?
Well, I mean, it's if you kind of buy it on early access and jump into the world now, you can kind of see these 3 big islands that occupy the game space, and you can only explore 2 of them in the current version of the game, but those 3 big islands are most of the size of the world. We are planning to add extra islands. There's going to be, the main quest is going to take you kind of to the world surface, which is going to be this separate level, and then when you come back you're going to be able to explore a few more islands. But by and large, what you kind of see in the game space is roughly how big the game is going to stay. It's not going to get loads bigger, and that's partly because it's fairly easy to kind of create new islands and to add new space, but then it becomes exponentially harder to actually fill those islands with interesting stuff. And from the very start, Dread Delusion was pitched as a kind of bite-size open world RPG. Like, we really don't want to create a world that, like something like Skyrim, where it's got almost this endless content that you can play for 100 hours. We're going much more for maybe like the 20-hour mark, like the idea of this kind of more bite-sized world that reacts to player input and has all these varied spaces, but also doesn't outstay its welcome, and that you can kind of if you've got a free weekend, you could maybe beat the whole game in a weekend or something. Like, because I don't know, I'm probably not the only person that feels these days a large amount of kind of open world fatigue. Like, if you buy the latest kind of hit summer blockbuster and it then you find out that the story's going to last 100 hours. I don't know. I'm the kind of person that these days I kind of sigh and, so I'd rather create something that has that scope and that it still has this kind of quite large space where you can see these cool things in the distance. Like, oh, what's that tower in the distance? What's that flying ship beyond the horizon? What's that strange temple? And like knowing that you can just set off in any direction and go to those things. But yet also knowing that this world won't just kind of stretch on for an infinite amount of time with all this kind of like copy and pasted content. And that actually this is all a handcrafted experience that won't outstay its welcome.
That's a fine, fun line to kind of follow, right? Because you want the world to feel like, oh, it's still a world that I like. At some points, I feel like I'll never see the end of, but you also want in the back of the head, but I can see the end of. Because I was only gonna say, like, if you walk like a Skyrim's like the best example of like that world is giant. 2/3 of that rule is like, oh, it's cool, it's a new random cave I go explore to get this thing, but at the end of the day, it still felt like a random cave to me. Like there is that very interesting fine line. But I'm being curious, obviously as we're talking, the game's in early access. Is there some level of in your head kind of thoughts or discussions happening of kind of how to expand that world kind of? Because in my head, your philosophy would be one of two obvious ways: is you physically expand the world, or you do like I said, like the Bethesda RPGs, or a lot of times do is kind of like but here's this new subworld that now you have a teleporter to kind of go to, because it kind of gives us this like double sense of like, oh, there's other parts of this world. Kind of, what kind of is your philosophy been kind of when you think of the possible future of this game kind of throughout development?
Yeah, we've got like a roadmap planned out. Like we know exactly what the content we want to add is. And the next big thing we're going to do is we're going to add this area called the Clockwork Kingdom, which you can currently see in early access. You can see the island, but it's currently empty. Like a few players have boosted their agility stat high enough so that they've been able to like jump the crazy distance to get to the island, only to find it kind of empty of characters and stuff. And that's because we've kind of put all the structures there, but we're going to spend a couple of months fleshing out with quests and cool things to see and do. And that's going to be the next kind of big content milestone, I suppose. And the Clockwork Kingdom is, I'm quite excited for it. It is a place ruled by a clockwork monarch, which is almost like an artificial intelligence that's just kind of like made of cogs, gears, and magic. And it has created a realm of state-controlled magic that has kind of become corrupted. And so it's this kind of idea of a utopic society based on magic and machinery that's kind of crumbled under its own weight, and you can kind of explore the ruins of this failed endeavor. And after that, we are going to expand the main quest, because currently there's not you kind of start the game and it'll start off the main quest, which sets you tracking down a mercenary called Vila, who is a notorious sky pirate. But right now you can't actually progress it very far. And that's because I wanted to flesh out the world before we delved into that specific storyline. It's actually... Sorry.
I was going to say, the thing I want to jump in there, because I'm kind of curious about is, so obviously, when you create a new world, you have to teach people about the world, right? Through some way.
Mm.
And obviously, I think the most common way for games to do that is through their kind of main quest line, because you could be like, oh, now you go to this town, or you go here, or now you learn about this thing. Since you said kind of your launch philosophy on this was give them the world first, and we're going to give them a main quest line down the road, how did that change the design and then the teaching of people of this world and what to do then, since obviously you get to hold their hand a lot less than you would if you had like a main quest line.
Yeah. So we obviously, like, probably the main influence on the game is the Elder Scrolls series, like Bethesda style games. It has a lot more interest. It has a lot more inspirations, things like Dark Souls and everything. But in terms of the, I guess what you'd call like the design, the player loop and everything, and the type of world we're building, it has the most in common with Bethesda style games. And as a player in those games, I don't know if it's just something about me, but when I'm playing an Elder Scrolls game, I never progress the main quest. Like, I've put probably like 100 hours into like the exception is Morrowind. I did complete the quest in Morrowind, but with Oblivion and Skyrim and Fallout 3, in all of those, I just kind of set off into the world and did everything but the main quests, almost as a kind of teenage rebellion against the game designers.
I appreciate that your version of there being like there's too much content, and like in your head you're picturing Todd Howard being watching this going tisk tisk tisk.
Yeah, I guess. I think. Yeah, I don't know. I just. I think it started with Oblivion when I knew that if you progressed far enough, you unlocked the Oblivion gates, and like hell would spill forth. And I kind of didn't want that, so I just never progressed it very far. And with Skyrim, I've got this aversion to this. I don't like. Perhaps it's because I'm British, and I've been brought up on these kind of like British stories where the main character is often kind of like this kind of absurdist underdog, but I kind of don't like the story telling me I'm really special. Like, like I dislike it in Skyrim when you kind of the kind of easiest first quest is to like slay a dragon, and then everyone's like, "Oh my god, you're amazing!" And it's like, but I'm not though. That was quite an easy quest. That was like the tutorial or whatever. And so I think I have this aversion to. I just want to be a nobody. Like I want to go off and I want to kind of be this kind of vagrant wanderer who's just nobody's ever heard of, and I just want to go and kind of like be this almost like voyeur in these different towns and cities who just happens to be in the right place at the right time. And so I kind of avoid these main quests, and I think that's big when I was making an open world game. But I think that the main quest is important. Like, I like that those main quests are there so that I'm willingly not doing them, if you know what I mean. And so when I set out to make Dread Delusion, my main priority was making sure that the world could stand up on its own, and that it kind of reacted to the kind of player like me who wants to just completely run away from their destiny and just kind of do silly things. And so that's my priority really, is making sure that the world holds up as a kind of collection of cool areas and side quests, and that is an interesting and engaging place. And then next we're going to build out the main quest, which is going to be, mostly a linear affair, quite like Elder Scrolls and stuff. But there are going to be choices that happen in the main quest that will change the world and kind of change the ending that you get. And despite everything I said about main quests, I am actually quite excited for the main quest we're going to put in. I think it's going to be a pretty cool story, and I think hopefully players will want, unlike my experience with Elder Scrolls games, hopefully players will want to kind of follow the main quest and will be excited for all that stuff.
Hopefully, yeah, it's always that fun challenge though. Once you give someone freedom in these kind of worlds, you're like, but you have to follow this one line, and that, like, you always get those people who are like, no, Because people, yes,
Yeah.
yeah. I do really like, I like the thing you said about, like, even if you look back at, like, Oblivion, and there's, like, that one marker where all of a sudden the world entirely changes, like, it is this line of, like, because there's always that player who will want the world before that one of those moments.
Mm.
So it is this fun thing. But yeah, so as we're talking, the game is in early access on Steam. It is Dread Delusion. It is for 19.99 USD. God bless if you need to figure out your local currency. Just go on Steam and figure it out. Um, I'm kind of curious then. So the game's been out now for a month and a half, I think, on early access. What is, I know we've kind of talked about it in broad strokes, but like, is there any estimated time of when people could expect these updates or this main quest line, or is it just kind of pay attention and we'll announce as it gets closer to?
Well, we're hoping to have the game done in about. We said that when we launched into early access, we said that we were hoping to have it done within 6 to 9 months. And so that probably gives us about 8 months left. So we're hoping to have it kind of finished within 8 months. Although obviously, game development is a a very unpredictable art, and it could be longer than that. But we're trying to release updates every few weeks. Really, we just put out an update a couple of weeks ago that added loads of more features to do with factions and like a new little island that flies above Hallowshire, and added in kind of this kind of mine dungeon and some new weapons and stuff. So if you pick up early access, you can expect to have a kind of drip feed of content. I'm not, and like I say, probably in the next, hopefully in roughly kind of 6 to 8 weeks, the next big update will be the Clockwork Kingdom, and then probably every month from then on, we'll add a bit more of the main quest until the game is done.
Perfect. Well, I want to say thank you for taking time out of your almost evening to talk to me today about Dread Delusion and just the fun world of kind of making these RPGs. Best of luck on finishing early access. And again, everyone, if you want to go check it out, it is Dread Delusion on Steam, currently in early access. Again, thank you for your time today.
Thanks very much, Mike. Thank you.
The SWW Show and all of its affiliate podcasts are podcast by me, Mike Maroney, and AJ Losi, sometimes by contributors, including Corey King. You can follow the SWW Show on social media at the SWW Show, or sooner or later you go to patreon.com/SWW to help us out. Thank you. We hope you enjoy the rest of your day.